I'm Jermaine Williamson, Senior Valuer and Realtor at VM Properties. And today I'm your host for Financial Firdayz. Thank you for joining us. On today's episode of Financial Firdayz, we'll walk you through the role of an attorney in a real estate transaction, understanding your valuation report, and the purpose or importance of a valuation when leasing or purchasing a property. Today, our guests are two heavy hitters in the real estate industry. I want you to stay tuned. Don't move, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Some of you may know me as DJ Will, but today I'm in the capacity of Senior Valuer and Realtor at VM Properties, also your host. I have joining me today Mr. Richard Goulbourne, an attorney and Realtor at VM Properties. Also, I have Mr. Winston Josephs, qualifying director and manager of the valuation department. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having me.
All right. So let me start with you, Richard. Let's tell us something about yourself.
Well, I am a real estate advocate. Actually, I am very passionate about real estate, and I always encourage persons to acquire property and get involved with, property. So,
good stuff, good stuff. And Winston, what about you?
Well, I am a chartered valuation surveyor. I studied locally as well as abroad, and I have been doing valuation for over 20 years. I'm passionate about doing valuations. It is something that I was trained for, and I always like to deliver and to please my client, and so I'm basically in it for the long haul. Yeah. This is really who I am.
I was going to ask you how you got involved in valuation, but you explained it right there. So, Richard, you want to tell us, how did you land these two professions, attorney and realtor? How did that happen?
Well, it started back in high school. I was good at the subjects that people would classify attorneys, the writing subjects, literature, and social studies, subjects like that. So from that time, based off my skill sets, I was aligning to the legal profession. So I did that, and then whilst I was actually studying at university, I started realizing that I really liked property. So I would go online and check out like the properties for sale and browse through. And as I progressed, I basically decided how I could get both things to meet, and therefore I went on and did my real estate certification. Awesome.
By chance, did you do debating in high school?
I did it in prep school, not at high school. No.
I can tell. So, now that we have a good idea of who my guests are, we will start with Richard by explaining the importance of having an attorney in a real estate transaction, be it sale or lease.
Well, very simply, the importance and the role of an attorney is to basically protect your best interest in the transaction. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we don't appreciate how serious property transactions are, and therefore your attorney is there to guide you through that process. Mm-hmm. Now, if it is a purchase, right, your attorney is going to put you in the best position. Remember that you're spending your hard-earned money. So your attorney is going to put you in the best position to know that the checks and balances of the property are in place such that the transaction goes smoothly, and there are no hindrances or hiccups which would prevent you from obtaining the property. If you're relying on mortgage financing, then some conditions have to be met to obtain said financing. So your attorney is basically there to guide you and negotiate on your behalf to ensure that you meet the terms of the mortgage institution, ensure that the property as you have identified it is a good security, and you're able to obtain that property.
Very, very, very interesting, very interesting. And still with you, Richard, oftentimes you will hear parties involved in a transaction want to use the same attorney. What would your advice be on that?
Well, not advice, but my view on it is that, it's like if you're buying a used car, right? Would you go to the owner of the car and ask his mechanic to check out the car for you? wouldn't you want your own independent mechanic to do the checks and balances of the vehicle to ensure that it is fit for your purchase? So it's a similar thing to that, where your attorney is looking out for you and doing and asking the questions, making the checks, doing the investigations about the property that would put you in the best position to make an informed decision for your purchase.
I really like how you put that. I've never heard that explanation before, but it is just straightforward, and I like that. Still with you, Richard, in the real estate transaction, you will come across different attorneys. So you have the attorney representing the purchaser, you have the attorney representing the vendor, but then the mortgage company also has an attorney. And you would now wonder, why is there so much attorney involved in the process?
And it is simply because, as I alluded to before, everyone has an interest to protect. So as the vendor, you want to ensure that you're getting your purchase money for the property. As the purchaser, you want to know that you're getting the property that you want. And for the institution, they have to ensure that they're lending this money for a security that is, everything is legitimate, everything is up to par. So everybody has a separate interest to protect. Notwithstanding, all the attorneys in the transaction operate in good faith, and they wouldn't do or shouldn't do anything that is really, negative towards the other attorney. But at the end of the day, your client, you are accountable to your client. So you have to look out at any cost for the best interest of your client. Good. So it's good to have somebody there protecting you, because the other parties may have somebody there protecting them.
Very good, very good. And I'll move over now to Mr. Joseph, Chartered Valuation Surveyor. That sounds like a big word. Yeah. You want to just tell us what a valuation surveyor, what's a day like for a valuation surveyor?
All right, so basically, well, anybody who is dealing in property would want to get us some information about the property, right? So that is where we come in. So basically, our function is really to investigate, research, analyze data, market data, calculation, and prepare a report. So we have to do all of that for our client. It is very important because persons may think that a valuation is just speaking to the figure or the value of the property, but there are other information in the valuation report that are very crucial to any transaction at all. It helps you to be able to make a more informed decision whether you're purchasing or whether you're taking a mortgage or so on. So, I mean, we spend a lot of time in office doing our own research. We also go and inspect the property. We do analysis, we do market analysis and so on. So basically we're trying to ensure that all the necessary information is gathered and is presented in a report for our client.
I like it. I like how you put it there. So just help me to understand, at what stage of the sale transaction does the valuation report comes in?
Very important question. So I think most times persons tend to get us involved at the last part of the transaction. But in truth and in fact, we are supposed to be the first professional involved in the transaction, separate and apart from the realtor.
Yes.
Right? Because of course, before you even sign any document, you want to know if you're getting value for money.
Most definitely.
Right? You want to know if you're getting value for money. So you will approach us. We will try to understand exactly what it is you want, because valuations are done for various purposes, and then we will take it from there. Mm-hmm. So it is very important that we are involved in the very early stage of any property transaction at all, because you want to know that you're getting value for money. You don't want to start the transaction and then get the valuation afterwards. You understand? So it is very critical that you engage us first.
Good stuff, good stuff. So while you're at it, I want you to just help us to understand what a valuation report is comprised of. What is in that report? We say evaluation and people are like, okay, I need a valuation, but a lot of our viewers, they have never seen a valuation report. Some don't know what to expect of a valuation report. So just help us to just give us the items that are involved in included in the report.
So a valuation report is really a simple to read document. It's probably about, it could be about anywhere between 12 to probably about 25 pages, right? We try to make the valuation as simple, easy to read, user-friendly as possible. So in that report, we will put things like the engagement. So we talk about the preamble. So who's requesting the valuation and the purpose of the valuation. That will be like in the first part of it. And then of course, we'll speak to the legal particulars of the property itself. So we would have done some research on the property to determine the ownership, if there's a title for the property, the size of the land, and all of those things. If there's any caveat, if there's any mortgage, so we speak to certain legal things about the property. So that, of course, involves a lot of research, which, you know, it's a burden that we take from our client, you know. And of course, we will also be telling you about things like the physical characteristics of the property, the location, and we will conclude by telling you the value of the property. And of course, we talk about the market value, the insurance value, and the for sale value. So those are probably other items that we could probably discuss later on.
Okay, I like that. I'm going to switch over to Richard at this time. Richard, in recent times, you would see in the public medium, in the news, particularly where people have bought property from persons, and it worked out, or it ended up into some controversy, to the sense that the person who is now the owner or proposing to be the owner did not buy from a legitimate source.
Right, and you know, it's very unfortunate, I feel, for those persons, but having an attorney would be an extra safeguard. So stuff like that wouldn't happen, because, you know, your attorney would do investigation to first determine who is the owner of the person, because an attorney cannot do a property transaction without the name, the TRN, and an address for the person that is purporting to be the vendor. So critical identifying information would first have to be ascertained. And we're talking about registered property mostly, so you're able to check the name on the title to see and compare it with the information for the person that is purporting to be the vendor. And secondly to that is, under no circumstances would you be asked to pay money before a sales agreement would be in place. So if it is that money you are paying over as a deposit or for the total purchase price of the property, the terms of that has to be by law contained in a sale agreement. And so under no circumstances should monies have been paid over without standing physical sale agreements in place.
Yes, I like that. And you're saying some words that people are the regular purchaser and vendor. They need more understanding of. You said sale agreement. What is there another name for that?
Yeah, so a sale agreement is basically a contract saying, you know, I am selling you this property and these are the terms of the sale. It would usually set out how long it's expected to be, how much the deposit is supposed to be, how the deposit is payable, and just generally, there's so many moving parts in a property transaction, and those moving parts typically are captured in that agreement between the parties.
Yes, I was getting to, is it referred to as carriage of sale as well, or it's a different document?
Well, so in the sale agreement, you have the attorney that would have carriage of sale, which is usually the vendor's attorney, and that attorney is basically responsible for processing the sale, for moving things along. So they would make all the necessary payments to the land agency, to the tax office, and they would take added administrative role under that contract to get things going, right?
All right. So we have some very important questions for the attorney, because the cost is a major factor. Yeah. People are saying, what is a typical cost to retain an attorney to represent you in a sale
Well,
transaction?
you know, it varies. It does vary, and it's usually a percentage of the property, the sale price. It ranges from 1.5 up to maybe 3.5%, but it's always negotiable. So you, based off of your negotiation with your attorney, can settle on a figure. And I find that right now the market rate is really 2% thereabout. So 2% of the sale price.
Okay. And let me allow Mr. Joseph to chime in.
I also wanted to comment on that scenario
Of the illegal sale of land.
Right.
Yes.
Because I want persons to understand that as valuers, we are the PI for property, private investigator for property. I dare say we are the private investigator for property. So before you get involved in any property transaction, seek the assistance of a valuer. And because the valuer, bear in mind, we are going to do all the investigation for you, the title investigation. I mean, we'll be able to present a report to you. You can actually look through the report and see who the owner of that property is, and sort of match it back with who is actually claiming to be the owner. So we play a very vital role in terms of investigating. We are the property PI, you know. So here at VM, always access us. We are right in Alpha Tree, where you can call us, you can send us email, and we will be willing and able to provide that valuation service for you. All right?
I like that. So while we're on the valuation again, Winston, I want you to just explain a situation where some purchasers find themselves in, where they are offering to purchase a property at a particular price. But when they get the valuation sometimes is less than the price that they are purchasing the property for, they offer to purchase the property for. What advice would you give a client in a situation like that?
Right. So basically, there's no law that says that a landowner cannot ask for what he wants, or advertise a property for what he wants. Right? There's no law that prevents him from doing that. But anybody who is going to invest in property would want to know that they're getting value for money. And so there are instances where persons would basically see a property, and maybe out of desperation, they probably make an offer on it. Right? And the offer sometimes is above the market price. Right? And that is where we're saying, consult a valuer at VM so we can do the work for you. You will also have a problem if you go to the mortgage institution, particularly if you don't have any financial support, any additional funds in the bank to support that purchase. So it is very important that you get that valuation report that will tell you if what they're offering to sell you the property for is equivalent to the market value.
Definitely. Richard, on this topic, have you ever had a client who found themselves in this situation?
Interestingly, I have, and you know, as the attorney, sometimes you have to try to make the best out of a situation. So you can, in fact, go to the other side and say, well, the client is having difficulty because they're unable to access mortgage financing, and you know, based off of the terms of the agreement, you can either request more time to find that difference, because as Winston would have alluded to, if the value doesn't match up, then the mortgage institution will not give you the full amount. And so you can negotiate and ask for additional time to provide that, or you could possibly do a vendor's mortgage, which is a totally different thing. But yes, I've had situations where we have to, you know, use our creativity and our nose to try and find a solution to, you know, the lack of value.
So I'm going to ask you to put on your realtor's hat now, right? And in helping a client to complete a offer form, and where you have conditions, you put subject to valuation.
Of course, all the time, all the time. Right? It's one of the cheat codes. So the offer is always conditional on a valuation report, because at the, these transactions move so fast. At the time you identify the property, you're willing to make a firm offer, but there's always that what if. What if you're unable to get the mortgage financing? And that is usually subject to the valuation report. So I know that realtors typically do that, and I do it as well.
Yes, because from time to time you will have a prospective purchaser, and they are discouraged by the amount of failed bids. They are offering, and they keep losing out on these properties. So they are tempted to offer a little more than they're asking, and as Winston pointed out just now, they can find themselves in trouble. Big trouble.
And we find that more commonly with the persons who are relying on mortgage financing. If it's a cash purchase, the price you want to pay is up to you. You go in your pocket and you pay it. But it's mainly for those who are relying on mortgage finances, which we find is the majority of purchasers.
Yes. So
even those persons who are buying cash, it would make sense to get a valuation done too, because if the property worth, for example, 10 million, and you jump ahead and buy it for 20, and later on you found out that it was only worth 10, you could have saved yourself another extra $10 million by just doing that valuation report.
And it's better to make the informed decision.
Yeah.
Right.
So from where you sit, Winston, you would have seen the property market transformed drastically, and I would put it, say, from 2017 to now in terms of price increases, or we would call it appreciation in value. What advice would you give to someone who is seeking to buy property now, but they are delaying because of the increasing interest rates? It has been in the news now that interest rates are going up. Your advice regarding delays, is it important to wait for a period, or just get into it right now?
I would say as long as you have the resources, as well, and the assistance from a financial institution, go ahead, right? Because the truth of the matter is that a property is the best asset that anyone can have in their lifetime. And we don't know what the market is going to be, say 5-10 years down the road. But what is guaranteed is that if you buy today, there will be appreciation within another 5-10 years or so. So, and I mean, property is one of the safest way to invest.
Yes.
Right? Other than in the paper and so on, stock and shares. But property also offers you a good edge against inflation, right? You can rent, as well as you'll also see appreciation in value. So, for example, if you buy the property today and you're not necessarily even willing to live there, you can actually rent it out, gain an income, a rental income, and you'll also see appreciation in value. So I wouldn't necessarily wait. I would probably, if you really want to own a property and you really want to invest in property and the resources are available, I would say go ahead.
Because the wait can cost you.
Yeah, the wait can cost you, definitely.
And on that point of cost, I'm going to go back to Richard now, and I want you to just highlight some of the costs involved in the real estate transaction from the vendor's side and from the purchaser's side.
Okay, so from the vendor side, we have the mandatory transfer tax of 2%, and that has to be paid by the vendor solely. We have the registration fee, which is 0.5%, but that is shared equally between vendor and purchaser. And we also have the stamp duty, which is a fixed $5,000. Then you have the cost of the sale agreement, which will be typically around the $100,000 range, but it can vary more or less based off who the attorney that is preparing it, and that is usually shared equally among the parties. On the vendor side, the vendor is responsible for paying the realtor's commission. So purchasers fret not. you don't have to worry. You can use a realtor and you won't have to be worried about the
commission.
The commission.
Yes.
You also have some other associated costs, which, as it relates to your mortgage processing fees, that are usually specific to the individual financial institution. But what is important is that based off of the financial institution you're using, you ask and find out what it is, so no cost takes you by surprise, right? So those are some of the costs associated. And then, of course, the attorney's legal fee, which I spoke to earlier.
Yeah, so that cost you referred to for the financial institution is the closing cost.
Right. That is the
closing cost for the financial institution.
Right.
Yes. But the overall closing cost would include your fees and
the attorney at the start of the transaction would provide you with a statement of account, which would break down all those individual fees. So you would have an idea before you get into the transaction of what the fees will be like, so you can know that, okay, I'm going to budget X amount for the transaction.
And while we're at it, I think this is the perfect reason why we regard property as medium to long-term investment, because of the cost to get in and the cost to get out. The appreciation you will require to break even, it will take you a few years.
Yeah, I find that in Jamaica, the costs aren't really conducive to flipping. So you don't really get in, get out, unless you maybe buy something that's a fixer-upper and you put in a lot of equity in it. But even then, when you're selling it, the 2% transfer tax is still, significant. But yeah, in the medium to long term, the appreciation definitely would outweigh those costs that you would have incurred to acquire the property.
Yeah. Yes. All right. So we spoke a lot about sale. We want to zoom in on leases.
Right.
So just explain to me the role of an attorney in the leasing of properties.
Well, it really is twofold. So if you're going to lease a property, you want to ensure similarly that the person who is purporting to be the landlord has the authority to do so, because sometimes we see where the landlord is not necessarily the owner. So your attorney would establish that there's some authority or permission in place that allows that person, if not the owner, to be the landlord. So in certain instances, there would have to be a power of attorney in place, which gives the landlord the permission to let the property to a person. Further to that, there is the lease agreement. So the attorney would prepare the lease agreement that would establish the term of the lease, how much the rent is going to be, and the conditions and certain covenants and certain conditions of that lease. What is allowed on the property, what is not allowed, because you have commercial leases, residential leases, and typically lease agreements need to be specific to the type of property and what it is being used for. And the attorney would be versed in preparing that agreement.
Good stuff. So Winston, market rent. Just explain that for me. Market rent.
Right. So market rent is basically that amount that a willing lessor will basically be willing to accept for a property for a particular term, and market rent is sometimes referred to as a lease, but it is really the amount that you would pay for occupying the property for a specific period in time. And I want persons to understand that we also do valuation for market rent as well.
I was getting there.
Yes, we do valuation for market rent as well. I know that persons tend to, off the top of their head, just come up with a figure and say that they're going to rent the property for X. But the truth and in fact is that just as we would do the valuation if you were selling or buying a property, it's the same approach to determine the market rent. So we want to also encourage persons to
seek
a valuation advice or a rental advice from them because we do the same as we would do a valuation. We do our investigation analysis and we present a report to our client.
I think at this point we would have covered most of what the attorney is responsible for and what the valuer is responsible for. Also, to break down the valuation report so our viewers online can have a better understanding of the roles of each party and what is involved or entails into a valuation report and a sale agreement. Also the cost. So we gave a lot of gems today. This is the time when I say thank you for attending to this session. I'm your host, Jermaine Williamson. And if you did not see the previous episode where my colleagues from VM presented on the process of a real estate transaction and the importance of having a realtor, you can check out our YouTube channel, which is VM Group. Just type VM Group in YouTube and the YouTube channel will be populated. So you can also reach us on telephone at 876-929-2283. You can send us emails at vmpsrealestate@myvmgroup.com. Post your comments. Our team is ready and available to respond. I'm your host, Jermaine Williamson, and I want to thank Mr. Winston Josephs and Mr. Richard Goulbourne for joining us. Thank you, our audience online, for being present. I think I would have exhausted most of our channels. You can find us on your social media as well on Instagram. Just type in VM Group, and there's a lot of information that are posted very frequently to keep you up to date with what's happening in the VM space. Thank you for joining us, and know,